Nole Insiders Lane Hurt and Tim Linnefelt here with you high atop Doak Campbell Stadium, fresh off Jimbo Fisher's press conference. No introductions this week. It's rivalry week, Florida State versus Florida. Jimbo Fisher said himself, you can throw the records out the window.
Yeah, and look, Florida State and Florida come in with identical 4-6 records. Neither team is happy with how they got here, but both I think can look at this game as an opportunity to say, hey, we still got something to hang our hats on here. Both wants to beat the other, and no matter what happens on Saturday, one team's going to come out feeling a whole lot better than the other. So it is still meaningful in that regard.
Both teams coming up with big wins last weekend. Florida over UAB, Florida State over Delaware State. It can make a difference, at least in the mindset of guys coming into this game with a victory.
No, absolutely right. Get some confidence, get some positive momentum. I would imagine both sides wish the other one hadn't done that, but it maybe feel a little bit more equal moving into it. And, look, it's kind of interesting because the records aren't, what they've been in years past, and certainly not in the 90s when it seemed like both teams were competing for national championships every year. But, in a sense, in terms of just one game, this might be the most meaningful game for Florida and Florida State in kind of a while. Florida State needs this one to keep that bowl streak alive. Obviously, if you were to finish 5-7, there's still an outside chance you can make a bowl game. But your best bet, obviously, of course, to go 6-6. So Florida State needs to beat Florida for that. And then for Florida on the other side, they're getting ready to hire a new coach. You can say in a down year, rebuilding year, that you directly cost Florida State that bowl streak and a chance for a winning season. So the ultimate sort of spoiler role there for Florida. I think both teams are probably going to be fired up for this, and maybe more so than an outside fan who doesn't follow this rivalry that closely might look at the records and say, it's not what it normally is. But I think in a way, these teams and players are probably going to be just as motivated as they would be, because there are still some things on the table.
Only the second time ever these teams have met, with both teams having losing records.
The last time was
1950s.
59. 1959. Been a minute.
Well, and I say that because there's been so many classic games in this rivalry. You've grew up with this rivalry. Yeah. What is one of your favorite moments?
Oh man, mine's kind of an underrated one because it turned out, unfortunately, to not be as significant as it felt after the time. But in 1996, when number 1 Florida and Danny Werfel came here to Doak Campbell Stadium, faced number 2 Florida State, both teams undefeated. Florida State won 24-21. It was a really exciting, awesome game. And then, of course, through the magic of the old bowl system, which wouldn't happen in 100 years, certainly in the years that followed or today in the playoff scenario, they ended up having a rematch in the Sugar Bowl, and we know how that went. Beating that Florida team twice was a pretty big ask, right? So, but for an afternoon and for a month or so between that game and the other game, it was a pretty cool time for Florida State to beat that Florida team.
There you have it, Seminole fans. We'll have much more on the Florida State rivalry this week. We'll have our game preview, 1st and 10, keys to victory, everything you need leading up to that big game.